Since the beginning of time, fashion has been a tool of self-expression. The clothes that we wear are an outward expression of our inner identities and the culture of the society and communities that we are a part of. However, within fashion in the Western world, there exists a strict divide caused by what one is expected to wear based on their gender and sexuality. We have created rules that prevent true self-expression. By the 1600s and 1700s, fashion within the Western civilization and the way in which structures existing around fashion were designed transformed significantly. In high society, men wore suits, button-ups, vests, and trousers to represent their practical and sophisticated role within society. On the other hand, women's clothing was designed to dramatically accentuate and show off their womanly figure through waist-cinching corsets and impractical, long, ornate gowns, painting them as an image of art and desire. The difference was stark. In older times, there have not always been such a black and white difference and restriction on what someone should wear due to their gender. For example, in ancient times, such as in Rome, men and women wore essentially the same thing, which was just white robes. However, in the Western world, gender roles in fashion have become very forced, and the difference between boys' clothes and girl clothes has deepened. Strictly separated sections in clothing stores with completely different styles, colors, etc. Clothing even sends messages to boys and girls depending on their gender, which encourage traditional gender roles. These establish strong norms based on their gender early in life that even relate to their purpose and role in their lifetime based on their gender. Wearing clothes that break these norms is often frowned upon by society, preventing people from being able to wear clothes they truly like or even opening their minds to possibly trying. These roles and rules ingrained from a young age can make fashion and personal style limited and conservative and cause a lower amount of self-expression. In the United States in the 1940s, colors became a large aspect of this as well. Pink was viewed as feminine, while blue was masculine. These stereotypes were deeply ingrained, and they were used to identify infants before they were even born. Here we see a boy and girl baby shower gift determining how the child will dress completely based on their gender before they are even alive. People often think negatively of parents and question them if they dress their little boys in pink clothing because it goes against the norm. In schools that require uniforms, cross-dressing is scandalous. Uniforms are made strictly so that girls wear skirts and boys wear pants. This issue is particularly harmful and prominent within the LGBTQ community, where members have been particularly targeted and faced with violence due to their choices in what they wear and how it is used to reflect their sexuality and identity, which is rejected within a homophobic society. A large characteristic of the culture within the queer community is fashion, self-expression, and glamour, seen within extravagant drag shows. In an interview, an American fashion historian explains this best when she is asked, why has the LGBT community always shared such close ties with fashion, to which she responded, quote, "It involves the whole history of oppression and secrecy surrounding gay sexuality, which was illegal for many years and regarded as a mental illness. So I think gays and lesbians had to be hyper-aware of how to read and analyze clothes as to dress in a way that would allow them to communicate with other people but not be recognized by a homophobic society. This expression has been limited by laws, arrests, and social norms that try to create conformity and prevent gender bending. For example, in the 40s to the 60s, three-piece laws limited what transgender people could wear with the threat of arrest. Through time and the Stonewall riots, these arrests were no longer occurring, but an increased threat of violence and hostility to non-conforming stylistic and clothing choices, especially in the queer community, remained present. Despite the laws being gone, the basis of hate towards these communities that caused these laws to exist in the first place has gone nowhere. Violence and harassments towards the transgender community are still very prominent, is seen in the 2015 Transgender Survey report that 46% of respondents were verbally harassed in the past year because of being transgender, with 1 in 10 being physically harassed. Although we are far away from restrictions and norms put on fashion due to gender, we do see examples in media of celebrities and role models dropping gender norms and promoting a less limited style. For example, in the December 2020 issue of Vogue magazine, Harry Styles took the cover as the first ever solo male cover in a dress wearing a Gucci gown. I spoke to the leader of Fashion Club at Peyton, Victoria Fain, to discuss this issue further and see what she, as someone involved and passionate about fashion, thinks about these limitations and divides that exist. How do you feel about how gender norms influence fashion and how people choose to dress?
Even though in today's day and age where people are more progressive, people are more supportive of freedom of expression, of your gender, your sexuality, your culture, anything, people are still afraid to express themselves through what they wear. In terms of like gender norms, people are still affected by the idea of gender and sexuality being correlated with their clothing. Like Harry Styles, he is kind of trying to break those norms. People associate the fact that he is queer with what he wears, even though someone straight or someone cis could wear those things as well. You see more and more people expressing themselves through their clothing. I still feel like there's not enough. Maybe it has to do with representation in the media. Maybe it has to do with homophobia, sexism, internal homophobia, internal sexism, but there's still a lot that needs to be done.
How do you think, or why do you think gender norms have become such a large, or have been such a large and controlling aspect of fashion? Like, how do you think that came to be, and why do you think that's such a large part of how people dress in all kinds of places, like the workplace, school, just everywhere? Like, why do you think it plays such a big role?
Conformity is the simple way of saying it. Conformity, people's longing to be a part of something, and the easiest way to be a part of something, to be a part of a community, is to conform. That fear of being judged, it promotes that fear into people.
How do you think in general, like fashion and self-expression through fashion allow and give a outlet for certain oppressed groups to cope and stay strong through their struggle, such as LGBTQ individuals, because that is a large part of that community?
I feel as though the whole purpose of like the Pride movement is to say that we're here, we're queer, and we're not gonna go into hiding. And through breaking against heteronormative gender norms through what you wear, because what you wear is your first impression of people. What people see when they look at you in those first 5 seconds of looking at you is their first impression of you. People judge you based on how you look immediately. Through clothing, people a part of the LGBTQ community, it's kind of like a silent way of being loud. You see what I'm wearing, you can see me. Like, I'm expressing myself through my clothing. I'm expressing my relationship with my sexuality and with my gender through my clothing. And when someone looks at you, they can kind of see that.
Does the fact that there were actual laws placed on gender bending show about how much American culture wants and desires conformity?
American culture, there's like a large portion of people who benefit from conformity, and it is heteronormative Western people. The whole law, the whole purpose of it was to keep people in line, because when people try to stop conforming and to express themselves in a way that is different from what people typically do, the people who benefit from conformity, they don't like that. It was also, I think it was a way to protect the people who are like emotionally bothered by people who are transgender and wearing clothing, because they can see that and they feel bothered by it.
Like homophobic people. Yeah, definitely. And that's like a big part of American culture. So now, in this day and age, in a more progressive society, how do we put an end to limits to fashion based on one's gender and sexuality and the violence caused by this?